What's going on, everyone? Evening. I decided to take a little break before getting back to work. Just have a little talk. Continuing this kind of introduction to understanding politics. And today's topic is bias. B-I-A-S. And what bias is, it means that you view the world in a very skewed way. And that usually there's a topic like, I don't know, abortion or politics or money or maybe O.J. Simpson's trial. Is he innocent or guilty? And usually bias means you see things heavily for one side or the other. Now the opposite of bias would be objective, meaning that you see things neutrally. You just see the facts as they unfold. Now I definitely pride myself on being neutral. I don't even have a favorite football team growing up or now, but a lot of people aren't that way. A lot of people are very biased in many ways in terms of sports. You can see this every time I like football, by the way, so I like sports analogies. When they throw a yellow flag, that means there's a penalty. Someone did something wrong. And when it's ambiguous, you always hear the same thing. All these fans for, say, one team think it's the other people that did it. And when it's the other team, they think it's the other team that did it. And if they get something against them, they'll usually boo. That's the easiest example I can say of bias. Depending on what your team is, you'll view the same event in a different way. Okay, let's talk about how this affects politics and understanding the world. So, when it comes to news sites, we have to ask ourselves, how do they make money? How do national news sites like ABC, CNN, The Washington Post, Fox, how do they all make money? And it's very simple. It's usually through advertising. They're private companies, they're not nonprofits. And so we can't necessarily see where all them, actually some of them might be public actually, so don't quote me on that. But a lot of their money will come from advertising. So if it's on TV, they'll have commercials. If it's online, they'll have ads, where the articles usually show up. They might have ads linked out to something silly. I can probably show you later. Diet pills or maybe some other gossip website. And that's a big part of how they make money, is they want to bring people in, as many viewers as they can, and then they'll tell the advertising companies, hey, we get, on average, this many people visiting our website every single day. Do you want to advertise? All right. Or do you want to, sometimes they might do placement in terms of some items. Do you want to give us this amount of money and we'll do a special segment for you on the news? And I've seen this before with local news. I had a friend that opened up a business and that's what he did. And so that's how news sites make money. And why is this important? It's because once we understand that they make money a certain way, we understand why they're built the way they are. Okay, so let me transition here. All right. So they make money, right? And so I wanted to come across this article, and it's from Pew Research, fairly a reputable company that does research. And it was an interesting article I came across earlier this year, and I was talking about Fox News. Now, I did not know this, but when I was growing up, Fox was just a place where I could see my Saturday morning cartoons. Things like Eek the Cat, Bobby's World. I don't think they had Power Rangers, but they had a lot of great cartoons, right? Fox for Kids. a lot of cartoons. And so I didn't realize that Fox is also a major news site, and so they host a lot of political news. And what this graph is showing you, as we can see here, it's talking about Fox News and what the audience members see. All right, so in the top left, this top left one, whoops. Okay, it talks about Democrat-leaning folks and which major news sites do they trust. And it's fairly evenly distributed, with 67% saying CNN. All right. But when you're a Republican or Republican leaning on the top right, it's actually 65% for Fox News and a major drop for all the other news websites. And this is why. It's because each one of these websites have a certain bias to them. With CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS, most are actually, you would call them Democrat, left, liberal leaning, and they present news in a certain way. They choose certain stories. They have a certain angle, and they'll definitely ignore certain stories that may not resonate with their audience. I'll talk a bit more about that later. And the opposite is true of Fox. They choose news in a certain way that will appeal to their readers. And again, this is a study on the audience members, and this audience members rated the other ones untrustworthy. All right. Now, this again, remember that football analogy I showed? This is the same thing. Depending on your views, you are going to view the same thing differently. And in this case, it's depending on your political beliefs, you'll see the same news channel as less or more trustworthy. And that's a bit of worrisome thing, because me, I want to be objective. I want to get the whole story. And so when I look at the news, if I look at something biased, I'll look at both Fox as well as CNN. And today it's not bad because we see it's the same thing. There's the issue in Atlanta, something about they were protesting at the Wendy's where a black man was shot by the police as he was escaping and took their taser and then tried to tase them, and he was shot then. Okay, so some protests are happening by folks with the Black Lives Matter, which is a heavily democratic, left-leaning, liberal movement. And so in this case, it's the same because we see that same story happening. Oh, by the way, so the follow-up is that those protests were happening. They were creating a no police zone, and apparently there was a car, a mother with her kids, a black mother with her kids, and some folks started shooting at her car. I don't know the details, and I don't want to pass judgment, but it's probably a lot of people who are antsy and, I don't know, maybe should not be holding guns. All right, you need to be very careful when you choose to shoot. In the case where you're shooting a little girl in the back of a car, you definitely messed up. Plain and simple. And that's why both sides of the story, both Fox and CNN are saying the same thing. But you'll see other topics that get different type of coverage. So for example, I just saw this one wild one. It was at a Chipotle in, I think it was Madison, Wisconsin. This lady, white lady, accidentally bumped a black teen who was with her mother, and then so the black teen and the mom kept talking to them, maybe a bit antagonizing. The white lady and her husband were trying to leave, and then they were blocked, and then that's when this lady, I think she was pregnant too, she took out her gun. Her finger wasn't on the trigger, thankfully, but she did point it at, I don't know who she pointed it at, but apparently there was a black mother and her two teens. Now, when it came to that story, I could see there was a tremendous amount of bias because on Fox, it showed the woman. I mean, you're not going to defend it, right? But it was a woman defending herself, and clip they showed. If you watch the whole clip, you'll actually see the black teen that was, accidentally or purposefully, I don't know. But she was yelling, you're racist, you're ignorant, and then she actually threatened to kick her ass, and then her husband's ass too. It was ridiculous. I'm neutral on it. I think it's just so many ways that a gentle brush, no matter what, you could just peacefully resolve that. That happens all the time. You accidentally step on someone's shoe. It happens all the time. Why does it have to escalate to talking about kicking someone's ass, not letting them leave, and then taking out your gun? It's just a wild situation for both sides. But when I went to CNN to see the headline, then it became woman pulls gun on white woman pulls gun on black mom and her kid. All right? And that alone tells you a lot. Why did they mention race? Well, it's because they know that's going to get headlines. Remember I was talking about how they make money? Right. So if you give them a better headline, and what's the hot headline right now? White on black. Anything. If it's black on white, if it's black on black, if it's a white on white, if it's Asian on Puerto Rican, people don't really care as much. But anything to do with white on black, it's just I'm just gonna say it like it is. It's trending. That's what people want to see. There's no other way to say it. So that's the bias of the audience. That's what they want to see, and they also want to see it in a certain way. Because if it was objectively mentioned, written about, they probably would not click on it as much. They might even stop visiting the website. And so that's the nature of our media. It's tremendously biased. All right. Okay. So the last thing is, now that you know that there's biased news sites, well, what can you do? The most important thing is that you understand what bias is. Bias is a human thing, right? Cats do not go around with biases about the world. If they see, well, okay, I can't think of any examples, but it's very much a human thing. And so when we understand our human tendencies, we understand when we're doing it, then that gives us the ability to find a solution, which is to understand it and then try to not be biased. Might be impossible, but if you recognize it, my solution is you look at both sides. All right. These folks on the news sites, they may not necessarily believe what they write. They may not necessarily believe their ideas. They have a job. That's why they do what they do. There's a First Take. There's a hilarious show. It's called First Take, and it's a sports show, and they're always talking about sports news and NFL, NBA, whatever it is. But they always have at least two people on there. And just like this, they never just present the news. They always have two people, and those two people usually have very, very different ideas. And then they spend the entire time not really getting to the bottom of things, not really getting facts. They just spend the whole time yelling at each other. Whereas, I guess the other one is Shannon and Skip Bayless. Yeah, they just yell at each other. They don't really resolve anything. But people love watching that. It's nonsense. You learn nothing. And even worse is, they get riled up. What's one of the greatest debates of all time? Who's better, Michael Jordan, LeBron James? People get riled up over that. The same way they'll get riled up about, Black Lives Matters and police brutality. And it's scary because I don't think these news anchors actually have these views. I think they're paid, yes, they are paid to create this tension, this conflict, this debate to rile people up, because riled up people will chime in, will watch, will continue to watch, because they don't want to just sit back and just, okay, thanks for giving me the news. They want to say, what the hell did you just say about Michael Jordan? And that's just the nature of our understanding. And that's why it's very important that when you do get that, when you do see news, you do get both sides. So although I feel that first take is an example of them just kind of lulling you in to try to get you to get viewership, the beautiful thing is they do present two sides of LeBron versus Michael Jordan, or Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning, or, I don't know, baseball versus, I don't know. But you get what I'm trying to say. So the best idea, again, is acknowledge that you have bias and do your best to get information from different sides. And also, you'll have some kooky friends, such as I do, that are extremely biased. And they're going to be scary people. You might even call them radical zealots. And it's very important to not try and argue with them, because they are so far into their own minds that there's no point. You can, if you want to strike up a debate, maybe risk your friendship. Or if you're, you understand they're up for a hearty debate, to have civil discourse, you can talk with them and you might learn something too, in the same way that I do with some of my friends. And you don't necessarily have to change your mind, just that when you see something so far out there, just acknowledge it's not representative of reality sometimes. Understand it's a bias, and make sure you compensate by getting different views. So just watch out for those friends on Facebook. Okay, that's all I got to say.